Hey guys, so with this one we have Brooke Van Paris, and it was again like 4 or 5 years ago, and yeah, the audio on her end just wasn't that good, I didn't think, and then mine was a little bit scratchy, and then I think it froze up a couple of times, so that's why I didn't release it. But yeah, here it is now. Everyone, enjoy.
Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get to our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Brooke Van Paris on the podcast, coming to us all the way from Ohio. Now, she's a jack of a lot of trades, so I'm just going to list these off right now. She's an obstacle course racer. She was. You can follow on Instagram at Beast Mode Barbie. She was a reality TV star. She did American Grid with John Cena. She's a certified nutritionist as well as a master trainer at Lifetime. Whew, we got through all those, but most importantly, she's our current guest. Brooke, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
Well, I really appreciate that. Well, I got to ask first of all, because I ask this first to every single guest that I have on, what's the weather like in Ohio right now, or in Cincinnati to be more specific?
So it's not bad. It was really, really hot. August is normally pretty hot for us. Definitely not hot like people in Vegas or Arizona or whatever. So I guess I can't complain. But it's been hot here lately. Nice humidity. Today it is pretty cool. We're looking in the 70s.
Now it's going to be about 90 here later today, so I'm not going to be going outside at all because with this skin tone, I'm going to get burnt to an absolute crisp if I walk out there. So it's I got to have like an SPF of 1 million. But I mean, like I say all the time, I'm going to do my winter weather or my weather podcast eventually, where it's just going to be like 10 hours of me just telling the worst horror stories imaginable. But I don't want to depress anyone for this podcast. So before I get into that, Brooke, why don't you give us your backstory on what really inspired and motivated you to get in shape and how that eventually led to where you're at right now?
Yeah. So, my whole life, my dad always wanted a son and he got a third daughter. So that's where I come into play. So my dad coached me in softball and basketball for 12 years. And then I took a liking to gymnastics and ended up doing gymnastics all throughout, high school and a little bit of college. But when I was a sophomore in college, I was leaving class. I was attending Indiana University down in Bloomington, Indiana. Go Hoosiers. So I was leaving class and I was hit head on in an intersection and the airbag shattered both of my hands. So you can imagine being a college student and a gymnast, having no hands is fairly difficult. So at the time, I did not realize that that was going to be such a long journey of mine, but the journey ended up lasting 2 full years. So I was in fingertip to elbow cast for 2 full years at age 19. And my dad decided, because, at that point, everything had been taken away from me. I couldn't go to the bathroom by myself. I couldn't feed myself. I couldn't bathe myself. I couldn't open a door. I couldn't touch my face. Any of life's simplest tasks. So basically, if you want to know what I felt like, tie your arms behind your back and try and live your life. So I went from being completely independent, athletic all-star to having everything taken away from me. So Dad said, believe in your dreams, and whatever that you want in life, you can achieve it. He said, education is something that no one can ever take away from you. So if you want to stay in school, I'm going to help you figure this out. So he decided at that time that he was going to drive from Indianapolis to Bloomington, which is 45 minutes every single day, to feed me and bathe me so that I could stay in school and be a full-time student. So crazy enough, I ended up graduating on time. And that was about the time that I finally actually took a look in the mirror and I realized I didn't know who I was anymore. I was so focused for so long on rehabbing from my surgeries and going through all these reconstructive surgeries and making sure I was finishing school that I had no idea who I was. I looked in the mirror. I was about 175 pounds and over 50% body fat. I couldn't feed myself, let alone try and work out. And I definitely wasn't picking the foods that I was eating. So it was all survival. So when I looked in the mirror, I saw this person who was definitely body-wise didn't look like who I was, and confidence-wise, I totally had lost myself. So that's kind of what inspired me to sort of get back into fitness. Was I wanted to win my life back. I wanted happiness back. And so I started by going to the gym. And I think most ladies can relate. Being in a gym environment is extremely intimidating. So I came into the gym, and unfortunately in high school and college, no one ever told you how to lift weights. They teach you how to play kickball and run around and play basketball, but that is not how you train an adult body. We can't be playing kickball. So I came into the gym, and I was so embarrassed with what I looked like. I was so embarrassed I didn't know what to do. So I did like everybody else. I got on the treadmill, pressed the green button, and I just went. If I wasn't completely gassed, I didn't do enough. And so it started to be cyclical. All I did was cardio, 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 cardio. And I had no idea what I was doing on the nutrition end. Because imagine that, no one in high school and college teaches you how to eat correctly either. I mean, the food pyramid doesn't even exist anymore. It's totally obsolete. So although I was doing all this cardio, I wasn't losing weight. So I tried diet pills. I tried the Special K diet. I tried Weight Watchers. I tried everything. And it was almost like if I lost the weight, I would gain it back twice as bad as soon as I went off the diet because it wasn't something that was sustainable. So I worked for Anheuser-Busch for 5 years. I wasn't a Bud Light girl. I actually shook the kegs, told the guys what to order. I wore a polo and khakis. I was very official. And one of the guys that I worked with kept begging me to do one of these mud runs. I'm like, are you kidding me? I already feel the most out of shape in my entire life. No girl wants to be around someone of the opposite sex and like not be impressive. So I'm like, hell no. I've never run a mile in my life before without stopping. So finally, after about 6 months of nagging and, poking the bear, I finally said, all right, enough is enough. I'll do it. So I did a mud run, which is an obstacle course race. This one was very local. It was called Morgan's Mud Gauntlet. It was actually in Brookville, Indiana, very close to Ohio. And it was 3 miles, and I fell in love. And what I loved about it, what was so addicting for me is everybody there was at a different level of their own fitness journey, and nobody really judged me. Everybody wanted to help me over these obstacles if I couldn't do them myself. And everybody was cheering me on for the ones that I could do. And at the finish line, we all wore the same medals. So there was no distinction between who was better than who. We were all just there for camaraderie and to cheer each other on. And that was something I had searched for a really long time. So, for me, when I'm in, I'm all in. And sometimes that can be a problem. But for this, it ended up helping me to save my own life is I ended up falling in love with the sport. I did 48 races in 9 months. I lost 40 pounds, and I represented the United States in the sport the first year.
Yeah, that is very, very impressive. And yeah, that's just so amazing. That's why I love hearing the backstories because so many people go through so many things. But I mean, I could not imagine not being able to use both my hands. I mean, even when you're telling me just like have my hands be on my back, I was like, yeah, that just wow, just that drive. So how are you able to like do like classwork and stuff like that then if you didn't have any did they just figure out a way that you could do it then?
So, you know how you have voice to text on your phone?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a software called Max Speech and Dictate. So basically, they got me with the special needs department at Indiana University, and I had an aide that would go to class with me, but I also had Max Speech and Dictate on my computer. But it wasn't as seamless as it is now. It's kind of like learning a foreign language. You basically have to say, like, the boy walked the dog, period, press key enter. So papers ended up very choppy and stuff like that. So I really relied upon my teachers to really help me. I'm really lucky that I can memorize pretty easily. So I would sit in my lectures and just kind of memorize the material. But yeah, I'm very blessed to have had really good teachers and a really supportive family.
Yeah, see, that would never work for me because I can talk pretty fast at times. So there's no way everything would be all messed up. But that's just so great that you had that support system because I mean that really does make just the biggest difference in the world. But I mean, you're also a reality TV star. You were with John Cena. How did that come to be?
Oh my God, so craziness, right? What Indiana person ends up on reality shows? Like, come on, right? It's like the California people are the real cool ones, Indiana people were just old Midwestern folk. But pretty much, after the first World Championships, I saw a quote on Facebook, and it said, "Your testimony could be the key that unlocks someone else's prison." And that's the first time that I had the time to reflect and think that what I went through is my story, yes. However, there's other people that are in the really dark spot that I was, and they don't know how to get out. So maybe if I share my story, not to look for pity, but to help inspire someone else, that maybe it'll have an impact on someone. So I shared my story for the first time ever on Facebook. And then I got hit up in the DMs, and that's how I got a hold of Fox. So they don't tell you they're Fox at the time. It was just a random, casting company, and it basically said, we're looking for America's fittest men and fittest women. And I thought to myself, did they not know I was handicapped like 2 years ago? So immediately I clicked delete because you think it's a spam bot. And a couple of weeks later, they ended up getting my phone number and giving me a phone call. So I took the phone call. We did a Skype interview, and then they sent about 40 of us out to LA. And upon that, we met the producers. We figured out that it was going to be Fox and that it was going to be a season 1. We had no idea John Cena was going to be the host until we actually went for filming. But basically, that's when the final 16 people were picked, and it was 16 pro athletes. We each represented the United States in the different sports.
Wow. Yeah, that's just incredible. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't even, I mean, being from Minnesota, I don't hear of anyone from Minnesota on any of these reality TV shows. But a fun fact before we get going is that I live in Bloomington, Minnesota, which is actually named after Bloomington, Illinois.
Yeah.
So yeah, just the little strange things in life. But when you were getting started back into, the working out aspect, especially after, your injury and just dealing through all of that stuff with rehab and getting back into it, what did you have use as your motivation, your drive, other than, like, I know what you're talking about, like, you want to take your life back, but I say just for the average person without any injuries, it's hard enough just to have that mindset to just keep pushing, because I mean, this is the one lifestyle where I always say, especially people in like my generation where everyone wants everything now and they want it yesterday. I mean, it's like, this is the one thing that you're not going to be able to do. How did you keep that positive mindset going through your struggles, knowing that it was probably much harder for you than the average person who struggles enough as it is?
Fun fact, I didn't. You can't always be a positive person. And I struggle, I'm very open. I struggle with depression and anxiety. And back then it would turn more into a panic disorder because I was claustrophobic a lot, having no hands. Imagine that. So, kind of going through the rehab and that kind of stuff, and then seeing myself in the mirror and having to go through that. I mean, you look for the light at the end of the tunnel, and things don't always work out in the same way that you would want them to. So you just kind of have to improvise. And my mom would always tell me, can you be happy for 1 minute today? And if you can be happy for 1 minute today, think if you can be happy for another minute tomorrow. So for me, I started breaking it down into small increments of time. And by doing that, it helped me get through more and more days instead of saying like time heals everything or just wait. It was physically breaking the time down. And then when it came into like the actual fitness journey, just sort of getting with a trainer and someone who could help me personalize my stuff and believing in the education of the process of it really helped me. I struggled a lot and still do with, some body image issues. I think a lot of women do, and I think a lot of men do. They just don't necessarily admit to it. So I think the biggest thing for me there was to really define what progress was to me, because it wasn't a number on the scale anymore. It was about what my body could do. So once I got into the obstacle course racing, truthfully, it did not matter what I weighed. I didn't even look at the scale. When I finally saw that I had lost 40 pounds, I was very blown away. Because for me, I was eating then to fuel myself for the activity I was going to be doing so that I wasn't cramping or I didn't feel fatigued or whatever. And I was working out so that I could do the obstacles better or complete something more the next time. So instead, I found different progress indicators besides just a number on the scale, because the funny thing is, I weigh about 175 pounds now. My heaviest, when I rehabbed from my accident at 50% body fat, I weighed 175 pounds. And if I saw both of those numbers right now, I would be a very discouraged person if I based it only on a number.
That's why I couldn't say enough, where it's like the body mass index, when people talk about like obese or not, like technically I'd be obese then, but it's like they don't account for muscle then when it comes to when it counts into that. So that's why I tell people too, it's like, yeah, it's the numbers can be definitely deceiving at times, but yeah, just getting that started. And everyone, if anyone has ever said on this podcast that, like, oh, I'd never have any bad days, I go along with it because I don't want to come out and call him a liar basically on the podcast. But it's like, no,
Yep.
that's definitely not the case. But I mean, when you were getting started too, one of the myths that I love to bust on this podcast, and being that you're a personal trainer too, I mean, you hear this all the time, where there's still so many women that believe this, where if they walk into the gym and they pick up one weight, they're going to put on 50 pounds of muscle overnight. And, I always say to that, first of all, give me that type of self-confidence, because I'd be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company by now. But
Yep.
I mean, it is just so not true. And the more that I can dismiss that, the better. But did you ever have that fear when you're getting started? And even if you didn't, I mean, I bet you still hear that all the time. How do you like to respond to that?
So I have always been a person that I just love like the empowerment of like gaining muscle and being like fit. And I think my generation is when I hit my mid 20s is when it started to be really acceptable for a woman to be muscular, to be in the strength training section of the gym. And I always, my entire life playing sports and that kind of stuff, I always wanted to be better than the boys. So there's something about just like lifting something heavy and looking like, they call me Beast Mode Barbie. That's the nickname, right? So looking like the Barbie and then going up and just smashing some weights, I love to see the reactions because people never expect it. So I think and everybody has different goals. So not every woman wants to be muscular, and that is fine. That is 100% fine. My version of beautiful is not everyone's version of beautiful, and that's okay. So when other women come to me and they are nervous about gaining muscle, like, sometimes they'll say, I want to gain muscle, but I don't want to look like you. I know what they mean by it. They don't mean anything mean, but I know exactly what they mean. So my biggest thing is, if I could get you to look like this that quickly, I would be out of a job. I would have debunked the whole, issue of muscle gain. And I said, bodybuilders would never take steroids. If I could get you to look like this within a year, no one would ever do anything they're not supposed to be doing.
Oh, I would say too, it's like, if you made those changes, I would hire you as my personal trainer then, basically. I just quit, and then I'd be like, hey, I'm going to train with you now from now on, basically.
Right. Exactly. So a lot of my girls, I just say, it takes perfect diet, perfect exercise, and, really strict dedication to what you're doing to look the specific way that I do, or to gain muscle in the way that you think that would happen. Especially with women, I say we don't naturally have enough testosterone in our bodies to inhibit that sort of muscular response. So it would take a lot more work for a female to gain muscle that quickly.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, I love to point that out as well. But the one thing that I think impacts women so much more positively than it does men, I mean, it impacts men too, but it's just the confidence boost that working out gives you. I mean, we have heard hundreds of stories on this podcast of women who have, it's just I always say it's the one thing that you can take from the gym and use to impact your life in basically every single way. But how are you able to take that confidence boost from working out and use that to help impact your life in a positive way?
So for me, it's just kind of like obstacle course racing. I see a challenge and I segue it into a challenge in my personal life. So if I can overcome something in the gym or something that I thought was hard and finally achieve it and then bring it into my personal life, I know I can handle anything that life has to, throw at me, because I'm able to handle something physically. Or even vice versa. If there's something hard going on in my life, the best stress relief for me is to get in here and lift heavy and get the stuff out, because as Legally Blonde says, endorphins make you happy, and happy people just don't kill their husbands.
That's true. Hey, I mean, you can't go wrong with Legally Blonde, I guess. I love the Legally Blonde reference, but yeah, I mean, it's one thing that we hear of, all the time here, but I love to talk genetics on the podcast too, because especially with everyone on Instagram, I mean, still to this day, I still have to deal with oh my God, I want his arms, I want her abs, I want their back. People don't realize that you can only be the best version of yourself. You don't know how the person got to the way that they look. I mean, let's be honest, some people are just those genetic freaks where, I mean, I still have that friend who he could eat 20 Snickers bars a day and he's not going to gain an ounce of fat. And I hope one day he's going to wake up and, 400 pounds overweight, because God's just playing a cruel joke on him this whole time, but it hasn't happened yet. So, I'm still hoping hoping that happens, but
Hold out. Low testosterone does happen.
absolutely. Well, and then again, my dad has a friend too who's like in his 60s who can still do that, and I'm just like, oh my god, it's just not even fair. But I always say whenever someone first gets started working out, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off, that they don't have to train as much, and they have that one body part that just really lags behind it. They have to train to oblivion to get them to catch up. What were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
Oh man, I was so embarrassed. Oh my God. So when I first started working out, unfortunately, when you lose weight, you cannot pick where your body loses weight from. Now, once you get to lower body fat percentages, then that's when you can kind of start manipulating and focusing on specific body parts to make them more muscular, define the way that they look. However, general weight loss, unfortunately, we can't pick where it happens at. So when I was doing obstacle course racing and running all the time, I lost my butt. And it looked like an extension of my low back. And all of my race teammates nicknamed me Pancake. And it was the most embarrassing nickname I've had my entire life. So I have made it a point my whole life to build booty. And it is one of the hardest things to build. But I will say, the thing that I'm probably known for the best now, if you had to ask any of the trainers in my gym, they would say she's known for her quads. So, just focusing on that and making it sort of like, instead of it being my kryptonite, you take that kryptonite and you turn it into a strength of yours. So I would say still right now, I am a figure competitor. So in figure bodybuilding, they look a lot for the shoulder caps. They look for a nice wide back. They look for the hamstrings, the glutes, and the quads. Right now, I would say my focus area is probably going to be those hamstrings, and the glutes are always a work in progress. Who doesn't want a bigger booty?
Well, I mean, for me, it's almost the same thing where I'm 6'3", so my legs and my lower body are just shot. Where I mean, I could inject pure muscle into my legs and they wouldn't gain an ounce. I mean, it's just not happening for me. But yeah, so I love to ask that because just the wide variety of answers that we get. But I mean, you're a certified nutritionist, and I always say that's the most undervalued thing when it comes to a healthy and fit lifestyles. People don't realize that 80 to 90% of this is healthy nutrition. I mean, like I told you before, I still have friends to this day who believe that, hey, if I work out 5 times a week, I can have Jack's Pizza, 5 times a week too and still get away with it. It's like, maybe right now, but just try that 5-10 years from now and see what happens. But what were some of the bigger nutritional changes that you made when you really started to take things seriously again in the gym?
Yeah. So when I first started working out, I was struggling because, again, I didn't know the nutrition thing. I grew up with a mom who grew up in a generation of slim fast. So for me, when I thought about losing weight, that meant slim fast and salads. And unfortunately, what happened is I was working out so much that it actually put my body into starvation mode. My body started saving all those calories instead of burning them. So I ended up heavier. So I finally, after I was on American Grit, I had one of my fellow contestants help me out with my nutrition and actually customize a plan for me. And I was blown away by how much food they were telling me to eat. Because I thought, how could I eat all this food and not get fat? Logically, it didn't make sense in my own head because I grew up with slim fast diet, right? So like eating nothing and air and fat-free sprinkles was supposed to be the way to lose weight. What are you telling me I'm supposed to eat like how many grams of protein? And believe it or not, after about like 3 weeks, my metabolism started to reset itself and I started to be hungry for every single one of those meals. I was eating about 5 times a day, focusing on really like clean, organic, non-processed foods. And it doesn't have to be boiled chicken, rice, and broccoli. If I had to eat that every day, I wouldn't look the way that I do and it wouldn't be sustainable. So I do a little bit more flexible dieting, which is macros based, which allows me to kind of plug and place different food items and be creative and fun and still do vegetables and healthy. So I would say just the biggest catalyst for me was making sure I was eating enough, but enough of the right things.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing that I struggle with too as well, where whenever I'm trying to maybe lose a few pounds, it's like, yeah, if I just, don't eat it, but then, you realize and then I'll have days where I'm walking 100 minutes and then, it's like, oh, I definitely need to eat stuff then if I want to burn it. But yeah, that's one thing that I think a lot of people deal with. But being that you help out people with their nutrition, what would you say is probably one of the bigger things that you have to deal with the general the general client? What do you say is probably one of the biggest obstacles that you have nutrition wise when it comes to getting them started?
Well, when I first start out with somebody, the couple things that I look at is I just kind of ask them, what are some barriers to your success? What do you feel like is kind of holding you back from being where you want to be at? Because no one needs to pay me to tell them what they're choosing is wrong. Like, no one needs me to tell them McDonald's is not a good choice, So people in a general sense have kind of an idea about healthy choices versus not healthy choices. But what it really is it's more about behavior change, and making sure that we start to change small behaviors so that it seems a little bit more palatable. And it doesn't seem like you're kind of jumping off the cliff all at once. Because just like dating, if you start fast and furious, you'll end fast and furious. That's my motto. So,
Seen plenty of my friends that can attest to that as well. Yep.
oh yeah, always happens, just like clockwork. So, my two main things that I try and focus on is water intake, making sure they're getting enough, hydration. I focus on trying to get them 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Pre and post exercise nutrition to make sure they're fueling their workouts right. Getting adequate sleep, things like that. So, it doesn't necessarily just have to do with the nutrition part of things. 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight is very hard for some people because most people are probably eating maybe like 50 grams a day, and they're blown away when they hear they have to eat 175 grams. That's hard for a lot of people.
Well, and you brought it up, and I always say it might be the most important thing when it comes to a healthy and fit lifestyle, and it is sleep. I mean, I would have never guessed it in a million years. I had a sleep expert on, and we talked about it, and it was just so enlightening to me. But what advice do you have for people that have trouble getting to sleep on time or sleeping? Because that's something that I personally struggle with, because my job that I'm going back to in a couple of weeks, I work nights. So, it's sometimes when some of these guests are like, oh, I get up at like 3 or 4 in the morning to go and work out. It's like sometimes I'm going to bed at that time. So it's hard. But what advice do you have for people just to get that proper amount? Because it really is the difference between life and death, basically the next morning, for how you're feeling.
Well, actually, it is long term. So people who end up having massive sleep debt don't live as long because their body's under stress. So I would say okay, so basically I'm going to nerd out on you for a second. So there's 3 different sets to your sleep. So there's your light sleep where you're kind of like awake a little bit. You could hear the door open if you were laying there. The second one is your deep sleep. Deep sleep is when your body starts recovering itself. Okay, so that's like when the repair and the recover of muscles happens. And then you have your biggest one called REM sleep, and you're actually going into a temporary paralysis there because your brain goes through neurogenesis, which regenerates the neurons in your brain so that you can store memories, and basically it washes your brain for the day. So if you're not getting, as an adult, if you're not getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep, you're now in sleep debt. And your body will prioritize which cycle it goes into based on that. So if you're not getting enough REM sleep, the next time you go to sleep, your body will pass over the deep sleep and go straight to the REM sleep because repairing the brain according to your body is more important. So then what happens is you don't recover from your workouts. So, and you can't catch up on the weekends. It's not how the body works. So I would say the biggest things, especially if you're a shift worker, so you really need to focus on routine. The body is a creature of habit, right? People who travel or people who work third shift, one of the things that you can take around bedtime, because that's what your body naturally produces when it starts to get dark outside, would be melatonin. That's very helpful. Or a supplement called Laura. Those are both really, really great. But get in a routine. So start to lower the lights in your house. So the big overhead lights, turn them off. Try and get blackout curtains. So the less light that's actually in your house, the better. If you have table lamps, those are okay. Try and limit your blue light. If you can't get the blue light settings off your phone or your TV, put on glasses that have blue light lenses that block those rays, because those rays actually trigger the brain to think that you're in sunlight. Another thing that you can do is take a warm bath before you go to bed, because the body's natural way to go to sleep is to cool itself off. So if you take a warm bath and then you start to cool yourself off towards bedtime, that works great. Having a temperature in your house around 68 degrees or a little bit lower, because your body, when it's in its REM sleep, doesn't regulate its temperature. So the core temperature drops. So you sleep better when it's cooler. So yeah, a lot of those things are really great. And then a fun fact, when you read, it actually simulates the same rhythms that your brain does when you sleep. So reading will actually put you to sleep faster because it mimics those rhythms.
Okay, that was the best answer I've ever gotten, other than the sleep specialist, when it comes to that question. So that was awesome, and yeah, there's so much there. But yeah, I take melatonin myself, and yeah, I've been slowly getting back to it. But I mean, there's a big elephant in the room, and it's the coronavirus. I mean, obviously, this
Yeah.
pandemic has changed so much, of the way that we live our lives, and basically everything. And being that you're at Lifetime, what has this whole pandemic been like for you personally?
So our as the world shut down, so did all the gyms. So we here at Lifetime Deerfield in Cincinnati, Ohio, we all came back around May 26th is when Ohio gyms were allowed to reopen. And upon that, truthfully, I just feel like Lifetime does such an incredible job. We have our facility here. We have 8,000 members. Our capacity limit is 7,000. So you can only imagine how big of an operation this is. And because of that, we have the staff to be able to handle all the protocols, right? So we have a staff of over 20 operations members here. So they can do all the cleaning and all that kind of stuff along with us and our members. We've done a really great job on educating on members on our cleaning product called Procure. It's super cool. It cleans everything within 30 seconds of spraying it on something. So the members know to wipe down things before and after they touch them. You do have to enter in with a mask. We take temperatures of all members at the front desk, which is really cool. And if you're not working out, you're not eating, or you're not actively outside at our pool, then we require a mask. So just normal walking around and stuff like that. We like the social distancing of the 6 feet. We kind of have the stickers on every other piece of equipment so that they can't be used. But we used to be a 24-hour facility. And just to make sure that we're compliant, we make our members feel the most safe. We shut down every single night for 8 to 10 hours so that our operations team can deep clean and make sure that they're cleaning everything. For 2 hours in the middle of the day, all of the staff stops what we're doing and we clean equipment. Classes are reservation only. I mean, truthfully, I couldn't be more proud to work for a company like this with all the protocols that they're doing, because my clients feel safe and happy, and I feel safe and happy.
And that's great, because I mean, the Lifetimes around me, I don't even know if they've opened back up yet. They might have, but up in Minnesota, things are going a little bit differently. Man, it's not that bad, but it's just people are just getting way too sensitive about whether or not to open things up or not. But yeah, it's great, and it really seems like you guys really have hit the nail on the head. So that's great for you. But also, when it comes to just this pandemic too, I always, like we're talking about before we started recording, is that people always like to use that excuse of, oh, I don't have the time to get in shape, I don't have the time to work out. Or it's the big thing of, I always find that every person that wants to lose weight, and let's be honest, almost everyone wants to at least get in somewhat better shape, they just lack the tools and the knowledge on how to do it. So what advice would you have for someone who's just looking to get started right now, especially during a pandemic where some people still might be afraid to even go to a gym just because they still have that deep-seated fear? But what advice you have for someone who's looking to just get started working out during this, because a lot of people do have more free time, so they can really focus on themselves a little bit more?
Yeah. So my biggest advice is just that. Just start. Do something. Effort is everything. So we might not have the time, but that's what we think. We make priority for things that are important to us. So if you think you don't have the time, I highly suggest writing in your journal blocks of what you're actually doing during the day and seeing where you can find that 30-minute gap to do something. Go on a walk with your kids. Make it easy. Don't make it difficult. Do things that you want to do, things that seem enticing. Go on a bike ride. Go swimming. While the weather is nice, there's lots of outdoor activity that you can do. It doesn't have to be lifting weight. If you're scared to go to a gym, body weight exercises are still really valuable. Or buying bands like resistance bands or a TRX or the mini bands or anything like that. Those can all be super helpful to add some resistance to your workouts. And that's where people should start anyway. Most of the time, their bodies aren't ready to be under load right away anyway. So the weights and barbells might not be appropriate. So, if you are scared and you don't know where to start, just really start with bands and body weight exercises. If you feel like you need some help and you don't know where to connect, most gyms have a complimentary session with a personal trainer. I highly suggest starting there because there's a lot of science to exercise. And truthfully, it's very hard to figure it out on your own. Every good trainer needs a trainer. I ask for suggestions all the time for my own training staff because they're very intelligent and there's things that we can always learn from other people and their routines. So just stuff like that. But if the exercise part is too hard for you, start by drinking half of your body weight in ounces a day in water. Start by adding in some more protein into your diet. Just small little things. Try them for a week. And then once you get that under control, try something else. I do have a YouTube channel that I made over quarantine. So the folks that don't have gyms open or are still working, out at their homes. I have over 50 free videos on my YouTube channel. If you just YouTube search Brooke Van Paris, it's free to subscribe. I did it for all of my clients when we were quarantined, just because for the most part, people come to me for accountability and support. And the last thing I wanted to do over quarantine was throw them to the wolves in the worst mental stress environment I could have and just said, figure it out. So yeah, that's a really helpful resource too.
I'll leave a link to that YouTube channel down below. And I always say, so many people just try to go full Rambo. And, next thing they I'll go work out for 3 hours. And then next thing 2 weeks later, their body's just broken in half. And then they're just like, I'm never going to work out again. So yeah, you definitely need to pace yourself when you're doing this, because I always say, there's nothing better than just getting that first foot in, because I always say once you take that first step into a gym, it's so hard to walk out of there without getting a workout in. So if there's one thing, it's just be patient too, and you're not going to see. I always like to compare it between like being someone who's trying to lose weight and someone who's an alcoholic. If you're an alcoholic and you go one day without drinking, that's significant progress. But if you work out one time in the gym and you look in the mirror the next day, nothing's going to have changed. So you're really just you got to be in there for the long term. So
Yep.
that's really one of the more important things as well. But also just with this whole lifestyle that people don't understand, as along with it too, is just you're going to be having so much more of a mental change than a physical change too, where people just notice the physical change, but they don't notice the mental aspect too. What was that journey like for you mentally, just reevaluating yourself and just looking at yourself in the mirror and just seeing all these changes? Because people do not understand that mental change as opposed to the physical one. And the mental one, in my opinion, is a lot bigger and it lasts a lot longer.
So the mental part really started when I overcame my injuries from my accident, because I thought nothing in my life could ever be as bad as this. And if I could make it through this, I could make it through anything. So that's when I sort of developed my mental fortitude. And then I just kind of brought it into the weight room, and that translated into like my personal life. So, for me, the mental change in my transformation was in confidence. So I used to be very insecure at what my body looked like. I used to lack a lot of confidence, body image issues, all that kind of stuff, because, the news media puts out these perfect women, and Judy Garland said it, but it's better to be a first-rate version of yourself rather than a second-rate version of somebody else. And so truthfully, I actually stopped following anybody on Instagram that I wanted to look like, because I needed to focus on what I could do. So I started to really sort of get empowered by what I was achieving at my races, by the progress indicators about what I was achieving in the gym. And that sort of instilled a lot more confidence and allowed me to be like excited and empowered about like, man, that is incredible that my body can do that. Like in my races at the start line. So I have a tattoo and it says, "You'll know at the finish line." Because everyone always asks me, why do you race? And for me, it's all that anxiety and self-doubt and negative self-talk that you have at the beginning of a race when you're at the start line thinking, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. This is going to be so hard. What if I fail an obstacle? What if I quit? What if I can't do this? And, for me, the negative self-talk kept going throughout the race. Man, you're tired. You should probably stop. And it was all about me learning how to shut down those voices and talk back to myself and saying like, no, you got this. You can do anything for 30 seconds. You can, just a little bit more, just run up this hill, just do this one thing. Come on, And then once you get to the finish line, that's the most empowering moment where you're like, I'm a freaking badass. I just conquered the whole world. Everything that I thought I doubted myself for, like I crushed it. I did that whole race. I completed all the obstacles and there was no one that did it for me except me. And that's kind of like where that confidence started to changes. I don't care if I have a little extra skin on my belly. I don't care if I have a little extra body fat here and there. Or I got the bra fat or my tricep hangs down a little bit, because I'm so empowered with what my body can do. And that is the coolest thing. Most people don't know how good your body's designed to actually feel.
I couldn't have said it better myself too, where yeah, a lot of people, they just focus on what they look like. They don't focus on what they can do. I mean, if you were to look at some powerlifters and you'd be like, okay, they look obese, but the next thing you know, they're up there and they're benching like 600 pounds and you're like, how is that even possible? So yeah, it can be deceiving, but a training technique that I love to ask personal trainers about, because it's something that, I was familiar with a little bit before I started this podcast, but so many people do it now, is time under tension. Do you like to use a lot of time under tension in your training?
So there's a lot of different variables I use to manipulate my training. So you can use time under tension, which is kind of like what we call tempo. So you can manipulate tempo, you can manipulate the amount of weight, you can manipulate the amount of repetitions you're doing, the modality that you're doing, and your rest periods. So those are typically the things that I manipulate. If you ever watch me work out, you see me close my eyes a lot, because I really focus on that mind to muscle connection to make sure I'm actually activating the muscle I'm intending to work. Because if you don't, you're going to end up with muscular imbalances, because the body just wants to move weight. It doesn't care how it does it, right? So time under tension is really cool, because you can manipulate how long that load is working on that particular muscle. So it's important, but there's different things I like to manipulate at different times. And right now I'm manipulating my rest periods, which is really throwing me for a doozy.
Yep. Well, and mind to muscle is a great thing too, because I always like to talk about it, because the general public, if you say mind to muscle, they just don't understand what the meaning is. But for you and for a lot of people, I mean, so many people talk about how for them to develop that, it takes years to develop a proper mind to muscle connection, because you're not just going to walk in the gym and have it, but how long into your journey before you really feel that you developed it? And the fact that, I mean, you could be really good with a mind to muscle connection for your legs, but then when it comes to your shoulders or your upper body, it could be harder for you. But what has that journey been like for you?
So actually, I'm really blessed. I work with a lot of really talented and incredibly smart people. I was watching maybe it was a year ago now. I was watching a video of myself doing deadlifts, and I did not see my hamstrings activate at all. And I thought, oh my God, I think we have a problem, especially as a bigger competitor. I need to develop those, and if they're not working, I'm not developing them. What was happening is I had created a very big muscular imbalance, and my quads were actually dominating almost every single lift that I was doing. Like how in a deadlift, when the main part is supposed to be your hamstrings, how are my quads activating? It's incredible, right? So I actually got with a colleague of mine, and he really helped me on corrective exercise and how to activate, like glute activation exercises. So one of the big things, if you're struggling with how to activate a particular body part, is get with somebody who's corrective exercise certified, or go and look up some activation techniques or warm-up drills and stuff like that. Like every time before my squat days now, you'll see me do some like banded donkey kickbacks, banded glute bridges, banded side step walking, stuff like that, so that I can isolate that particular muscle, get it to start burning just a little bit, so that I can actually remember what that feeling feels like, so that in my squat and deadlift, I can actually command that specific muscle to work instead of the other ones. And sometimes that takes being humble and going through some corrective techniques for longer than you might want to, because you want to push big weight and you can't, and actually lowering the weight. So in order to make big progressions, sometimes you have to humble yourself and make a regression so that you can actually build into it the right muscles.
Okay, I can just say it straight up. Brooke is one of my favorite guests just because she actually explains the stuff. Where I'll have guests sometimes where I'll ask, like, what do you do for mind, or how long did it take you? They'll be like, oh, like a year or two. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, so it's great that we're getting all of this. But so a question that I asked all of my viewers before the start of this new year is, what's one body part that everyone's looking forward to, training and growing the most? And the answers that I had that they could choose from were arms, abs, back, shoulders, hamstrings, glutes, everything. Arms won by like 10% because I have a lot of guys, I guess, that watch the podcast. So what does an arm workout look like for you?
Oh my gosh. So I never do a specific arm workout. I know, guys, I'm failing you. I do. My biceps are really sore right now, if that counts for anything.
I guess that counts. Yeah, but
I like to do a lot of, truthfully, if I want to really smoke my biceps, I like doing 21s. So basically, if you don't know what a 21 is, it's moving through the range of motion of a typical bicep curl. So you work the down part of it for 7 repetitions, you stop, you work the upper half of that motion for 7 reps, and then you go all the way down full range of motion, 7 reps on that. But I do a lot of bicep curls like that. I like doing tricep dips. I like doing a lot of functional movement. But you'll see me do like dumbbell hammer curls. I like an overhead tricep press, that kind of stuff too. But I'm gonna have to dog on my guys. Truthfully, my favorite body part is shoulders.
yeah, well that works too, but I mean, and plus being a figure girl too, I mean, you're not going to want to have these gigantic arms, because figure, for anyone that isn't aware, I mean, you're not doing like the front double bicep poses, you're not doing the bodybuilder poses. It's more about the
No.
symmetry and stuff. So yeah, whenever I ask figure people that I have on, if what do they do for arms or any body part, I'm like, I know that most of them, just try to maintain it. They don't try to push it too hard. But yeah, that's awesome. And for someone like me, who's, like I told you before, my legs are just absolutely shot. What do you do for your legs? Because any advice that I get from anyone, I'm trying it like the next day, and I've seen a tad bit of growth, but it's like, for me, I literally just feel like it might be one of those things where I might just have to get like a plastic mold that makes my legs look bigger. That's the only way that I can do it. Or like a SpongeBob thing where I might have to like have these inflatable legs that blow up a little bit.
That is awesome. So, as far as legs, I try and hit them 2 to 3 times a week. I'm changing my protocols now, but I used to, one day of the week focus on anterior, which is your front of your body. So, if you think about anterior and posterior, the best way to think of it is A is the first letter of the alphabet. So, that comes first, that's in front of you. Posterior is the backside. So, that would be like a quad focus day, and then maybe like a hamstring and glute focus day. Now I'm working more for doing hamstrings twice a week, because I'm about to start prep for another bodybuilding show, and my hamstrings are kind of like my weak point. So my coach wants me to hit hamstrings twice a week. So for me, that'll look like maybe some back squats to start off the workout. Then we're moving through traditional deadlifts, landmine deadlifts, maybe doing some weighted step ups or leg press, hack squat. And then doing some, leg extension, glute bridges, all that good stuff as well.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff, and I really appreciate that. And if someone were to walk up to you and say, Brooke, we made the decision you can change one thing about the bodybuilding sport or lifestyle, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Ooh, it's the nature of the beast. I think the hardest part about bodybuilding is the diet. And I think that I wish people were more open about how hard it actually is and how rough it is on a female's hormones. Because I think everyone, once stage day hits, it's like that glory moment of, wow, this was amazing and so awesome and like the most special thing ever, and like everybody should do it. My first experience was not like that. It was miserable for me for like the last couple months, and you really have to be in a really great mindset going into it, because the eating's really rough. I mean, there's points where I was going through, symptoms of what would seem like early stage menopause, which is like hot flashes and all that kind of stuff, because I had no body fat. I was at 7% body fat. For women, when you're below 10%, that's when your essential fats are done. So it starts to really affect the hormones, and they stop producing. So I think I wish that in the bodybuilding industry, people were more open about the actual process about it. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't think it's beautiful and amazing and incredible and whatever. I wouldn't do it again if it wasn't, but it is something that takes a lot of mental fortitude and dedication. And if you're not in the right mindset, it's probably not the sport for you.
100%. I mean, I had a hormone specialist on a few weeks ago, and first of all, I even told her, I was like, I didn't even know that guys had hormones. I thought that was just like a female thing, and we talked, she laid it all out for me, and I was like, wow. I mean, it was just so enlightening, and it really just, labeled down the fact that, I mean, for women, bodybuilding is much more of a challenge when it comes to the hormonal aspect. And yeah, I even told her, I was like, one time I had a guy ask me, he's like, you should go and get your hormones checked out. I mean, I wasn't doing anything, and I was just like, I'm not pregnant. Why would I get my hormones checked? So yeah, literally it shows how little I knew. But if we were to talk to you a year from today, what are some goals that you'd like to have when it comes to, your bodybuilding or just your personal training or just your overall life? Where would you like to be at if we were to talk to you a year from today?
So a year from today, so in May of 2020 is when I'll step on stage the next time. So I'm going for the overall title. So the first show I ever did, I won my division, but I lost. I got second in the overall. So I'm going for that, and I'd really like to do a crossover from figure into wellness, which is the new women's category, which is really incredible. So I would love to do that. And then let's see. Personal wise, I would love to be managing a club. So I'm an assistant manager right now at Lifetime Fitness, and I would really like that personal training manager position.
That would be great, and we wish you nothing but the best when it comes to that. And is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Oh, I mean, just everybody, all of my girlfriends and my family and all the people in my life from Indy to Houston to Cincinnati, my obstacle course race friends, bodybuilding friends, just everyone who has sort of loved and supported me and helped me on this journey, because I could not have made it here without the support of other people.
And I mean, that support system, like we were saying before, is just so much. And again, I mean, Brooke, we cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your journey. I mean, it's such an inspiring story that it's one of those where it's just like, hey, everyone, if she can do it, I mean, what excuses do you have? Where it's just, I love hearing those inspiring stories and I mean, it's just so great that, what you're doing right now. And everyone, go and give her a follow on her Instagram page. I'll leave it down below. And buyer beware, you will want to get off that couch and stop eating all those Twinkies by looking at some of these photos that she has. But again, Brooke, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it.
So welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
100%. So everyone, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.